Hey everyone, Zoraz here from Casuals. Today bringing you a guide on the elite DIREBEAR fight in Call of Dragons. Now the DIREBEAR is one of the later behemoth fights in the game and it has quite a lot of mechanics. So I will go through all of the abilities and the mechanics as well as show you a full fight of how this whole thing goes on. First, I want to show you too that this is the power my alliance was when we killed it in order to get the special frame. So we had to kill him in 6 minutes and a half. This was basically 4 or 5 days ago, so we were a little bit lower than this, but we are a very strong alliance with many T5 player. So it is a pretty strong boss and it is a hard fight in order to get this reward. Basically, as you can see here, 6 minutes and a half you can get this border and all these extra rewards, and this is a server first only. So it took us quite a while to get this, so don't expect this to be easy. It is a very hard fight. Now the DIREBEAR has a lot of mechanics which I'll show you during the fight, but what to note is that the elite version of this boss has basically much higher damage here. The other thing to talk about, of course, is that he has magic suppression, which means that enemy legion deal 50% less magic damage. So, of course, bringing mage units in this fight is quite bad or pointless. They really do a low damage. They really do nothing at all. So if you are going to succeed in this fight, you will want to be bringing archers, marksmen, or maybe cavalry, but in general you would want to be 99% archers, and that is how we specifically did it, with just a few cavalry and a tank, of course. The other thing to know here is that when he has less than 30% HP, they will restore HP. So the boss will heal itself, equivalent to 30% of the damage dealt. This means that towards the end of the fight, no one must be getting hit by the avoidable damage that this boss does, or you will not succeed in this fight. So it is a quite tricky thing. You must for sure pay attention to what you're doing. If you are going to be succeeding, you will need voice communication and your alliance to be working together. Now, as always, before the fight goes, make sure to pick up a rune that gives you some kind of offensive ability, as well as War Frenzy by scouting an enemy player. This will give you a little bit of attack buff, which is what's important on this fight. The fight starts off pretty straightforward. You try to be a circle around the boss. As you can see, we're all using archers almost, as well as our tank, which is in the front. You can see that this boss does an AoE in front of him every few seconds, basically, where he cleaves and attacks everybody. So anybody who's melee should stand on the sides or behind him a little bit. Otherwise, it will be quite hard. His big mechanic in this boss, you can see it's like the purple zone that he puts underneath him. Now this purple zone he will keep putting over and over during the fight. Now we are using a special strategy here, which is bringing the artifact that lets you cleanse debuffs. Now that artifact is a unique artifact and it lets you basically do cleansing charm and cleanse basically an area around you for a few seconds. So I can see our tank just used it here to cleanse a bit of the area and give himself more room. This is one way of doing it. Otherwise, you would have to basically kite him the entire time. Now, the big aspect of this boss is this. He is going to knock everybody and then do a charge. You must, I repeat, you must avoid this. If you do, the boss stuns himself and reduces his defense so that everybody can do much more damage to him. This is the trick to beat this fight. There is no other way around it. If your alliance doesn't dodge this, not only does he not get stunned, but he will then spawn more purple stuff behind him. It creates a whole mess of complication in this fight and will really not make it easy. It will make that you will not be able to get it in the correct timer if you are basically not dodging this. Now, the fight otherwise is pretty straightforward. He will just attack the tank and spawn more purple stuff, and if you are going to be kiting him, that's fine, but otherwise you will have to use a few of your players who are going to be bringing the cleansing artifact, which will allow you to cleanse the area repeatedly. So you will make an order. Basically, one player goes first, second player goes second, third player goes third, and you want to have like 5 or 6 players who have this artifact so that you can give yourself some room when the purple stuff is in a really bad spot and your DPS can't attack him. They will be cleansing it for the DPS to then be able to attack it. As you can see here, it can create some complication. The purple stuff can really block you, and you will not only take damage if you stand in it, but also you will not be able to attack the boss. So they will be complicated if you do not have this artifact. Now the charge happens again, of course, and the second time he charges twice. So it becomes harder and harder to dodge. As you can see, he can trick people in the corner pretty hard. But luckily for us, our alliance members all dodged this one as well. So if you dodge both of them, you will then again have him be stunned for 20 seconds and do much more damage to him during that time. Now, this will be very important, as I said, because when he goes lower than 30% HP, if he hits people with his charge, he heals himself, and he will be charging a lot in the later phase. So this is what your alliance must nail, practice all the time. When you get knocked back in the air, everybody must immediately start to move away from his charge. When you get knocked up and thrown into the wall, you know he's going to charge, so get ready to move your march and be ready to go anywhere away from his charge. And remember that he charges more than once the further down in the fight you go. Now, another thing is he also spawns those healing runes. So as you see, you don't have a choice but to walk into some purple stuff sometimes and get some of the damage. So it is important that your group keeps track of that. And when your DPS is a little bit hurt or is forced to stand into some purple stuff, you will want everybody to go stand on a rune and heal yourselves. It is obviously not a really hard thing to do because it is straightforward and he has a lot of runes. We don't use most of them most of the time, but it is important as well that you keep the tank healed because the tank will be taking a lot of damage in this fight. So the tank should be the one basically calling when they need a rune, and the DPS, obviously, if they get trapped into something and get a lot of damage, should be calling for a rune as well. Now, this is the third charge of this fight. As you can see, he is going to charge once in the wall, and then he will charge a second time in opposite direction. And after this, he will charge another time. So we're pretty lucky because most people have dodged it. But you can see the charges are now leaving a big trail of purple behind them. This makes it just much harder in order to survive and avoid this because obviously that purple trail is going to create a lot more of an area that is hard to fight in. So if you had more of the Bangle artifact to cleanse the debuff, you would be using it then here maybe to make some spot. But luckily, he stuck himself into a wall in a position that we were able to stand close enough to attack him. So as you can see, this is pretty much the entirety of a fight. Now it might look easier on this because of the fact that we did it pretty well and he got stunned 3 times, which means that nobody got hit. But it is very, very hard for all 45 players to dodge the charge. He does the charge very often, and it is going to be what makes you wipe over and over if you are not careful. Now, of course, even if you get hit by the charge once or twice, it's not the end of the world. But in this instance, we are trying to do the fight in 6.5 minutes, which means that it is a timer and you have to beat the DPS race. And the only way to do that is that if he gets stunned after charging and not hitting anyone. So if you are going to miss that, you will never be able to get the rewards from this boss, of course. So it is just something that you have to work on. It is going to be a DPS check. It will check how much gear and how much strength your alliance has. In order to beat this boss, it is going to be requiring a lot of strong players, 75 players, and so on. Here you can see that he charged last time here, and he did hit some players. Now he's almost dead, so we are not caring as much. Our goal is really just to bring him down. But you can see that it does a lot of damage when he hits someone because he gets frenzied, he gets buffed, he heals himself for a lot, and he deals a lot of damage. So if someone gets hit by a charge, you instantly lose and cannot get the reward. Now, luckily for us, we still beat him, of course, but we missed the timer by a few seconds. Now, we did manage to succeed basically a few hours later, so it was not too bad. We managed to get the reward and the frame, but sadly I wasn't there for that attempt, so this is why I'm showing you guys this attempt, and you can see exactly how it works and how we could do it in a place where it's almost to the point where you could get the rewards and get the frame for your alliance. But even if you don't get the frame, the rewards are still worth doing, and getting the Direbear to level 2 will bring you a lot of power in PvP fights. So again, to recap about this fight, the most important thing is to learn to dodge the charge. Your alliance should learn to dodge the charge. Whenever you get thrown up in the air, you should drag your march and prepare to move preemptively before he even charges. If you can master that and then work around the Spirit Bangle, the artifact that cleanses the purple stuff, have it on a few players, obviously your tank and maybe 2 or 3 calves, or even marches that are marksmen or mages can bring it. It doesn't really matter, but you would really like to have obviously all marksmen for the damage and your tank, and have a few bangles to make it easy for you if you need to cleanse an area that makes it so that your raid can't attack. These are the tricks that we use, and as you can see, these are the tricks that made us successful in attempting and doing this boss under 6.5 minutes. The normal version of this boss is pretty similar to this. It's just a bit easier, so it shouldn't be a problem if you follow these rules. They will be the same. And otherwise, there is going to be harder and harder bosses coming from this point, so I would not expect anyone in an alliance here that doesn't have a lot of T5 players in the Discord and organized voice chat to be able to do these elite raids just yet. It is still very early in the game, so don't fret it if you're not able to kill the elite versions of these raids just yet. Just keep working on your power, keep working on having full T4 marches, as well as I'm using a pretty specific Guanwin Behemoth build, which works very well. I recommend you check out my Peacekeeper talent build videos, where I show what talents work against Behemoths for Peacekeepers, and how I'm doing so much damage using T4 compared to a lot of T5 players because of this build, obviously making it very strong. As always, if you have any question, make sure to share in the comments, and I will be working on guides for the upcoming bosses, the Necro Giant, which is one of the hardest elite fight in the game, so it will take some time before we get there, but look forward to that video in the future. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.